what we're looking at today, or what we want to understand, is cellular function. Every disease is a cellular disease. Every disease comes from some part of your cells not functioning as well as they should be functioning. Every cell of your body is growing in either a strong and healthy direction or is diseased and it's going the other way. You can create healthy cells by proper nutrition, proper diet. Now I need some volunteers to create a cell. This is how a cell works. DNA, here's the DNA. This is the center of every cell. Now, the DNA never goes anywhere. The DNA is so smart and so incredibly intelligent, double helix and stuff. You're a team. You tell her what to do. Oh, you got it. Marina, you're messenger. All right, so these two are inside. So anything that needs to happen inside the cells, right here, Marie says to Courtney, DNA to RNA, go do this, and it makes things happen inside the cell. This guy represents food. He represents some sort of a form. Yes, everybody's hungry in there, the DNA, especially Miss Mitochondria. By the way, Miss Mitochondria is constantly spinning like a ballet. Spin, 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 spin. Okay, what makes her spin, she really is a very good mitochondria. Here's what the mitochondria needs to create energy. ATP is the energy unit. It needs oxygen, nutrients, and one thing that's really, really important, enzymes. Now, this gentleman, what type of food are you? Protein, good. All right, so for him to get inside, he's got to be how small? He's got to be broken down. And he needs a positive charge, an enzyme. Okay, so he wants to go in. All right, we're going to take him in, let him. Lipid protein. He gets to come in. Where's Miss Mitochondria? So happy to see him. DNA is, oh, look at how happy she is. And there you go. Now we have a happy cell. Now you can understand the 7 deadly sins of the cell. Anyway, Dr. Aubrey de Grey of Cambridge is probably one of the foremost scholars in how to live to 120 years. And he's the one who coined the 7 deadly sins of the cell. And much of this I'm going to tell you about is based on Dr. Aubrey de Grey's work. You can Google search, you can look him up. He's absolutely brilliant, and he's one of the few doctors that have said, forget all the symptoms, let's go back to the cells. All right, the #1 worst starting sin is actually too few cells. Your body does not create enough cells, and that is a straight-on nutrition issue. And remember, nutrition is not just what you eat, it's what you absorb. #2, cells that don't know when to die. So cells that have not picked up, it's called the apoptosis message that says, stop replicating. You're no longer a healthy cell. So if we take this cell here, and it's supposed to replicate, let's say, 40 times. Okay, so it's got a message, got built into its DNA a code that says replicate 40 times. If it replicates 41, 42, 43, it's like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, but it's not, it doesn't have the proper telomerase or somatic cells or anything like that. It's not good anymore. And so that cell is what we would call a mutation. #3, extra or outside the cell, remember that nice circle that we had? Outside the cell, toxicities. Toxicities in the extracellular fluids. And those can be, and by the way, the #1 cause for extracellular toxicity, the #1 cause for extracellular toxicity is dehydration or not drinking enough water. One of the worst toxins extracellular to the body is bacteria. And bacteria is running rampant. We have had extensively, especially in the United States, the extensive overuse of antibiotics, and it's caused bacteria that grow very, very fast, and it's actually caused more of a bacterial problem. #4 is intercellular toxicity. That's toxicity. Remember the cell group? Remember we got the protein in? What if bad guys got inside the cell? That's really a problem, right? Because that causes even the DNA, mitochondria, and RNA to not work at all like they're supposed to. That's the worst of the worst kind of problems. And virtually anybody who's got any form of cancer or who's got anything that's a strong, highly degenerative disease, it's because the toxins have now went from just outside the wall to inside the cell wall, and they're causing problems of degeneration in the DNA, mitochondria, and all the intercellular functions. That's by far the worst. And this is where we get to some of the environmental toxins, such things as mercury, and such things as pesticides and chemicals and things like that. They seem to be able to find a way inside the cells. 5 is cells, when 2 cells don't communicate to each other. And that's because they stick together. Yeah. That's when 2 cells instead of having a natural, like normal adherence to each other where that cell wall is strong and they bounce back and forth, they have elevated levels of glucose or glycogens that go around them. It's almost like, think about two donuts, two Dunkin' Donuts or whatever named donuts. Think about those sticking, because every time you eat glucose, you're adding to that gumming factor. Now when cells stick together, when there's a thing called the GAMP, CAMP, there's some communication cells, you know, that tell cells exactly what to do, then those cells become very, very deficient because the cell walls are glommed onto each other and you're not getting even the normal messages. This is by far the #1 killer in the United States, by far, is the high use of glucose in our diet. These cells have to communicate to each other. It's like if two people sitting to each other would never talk, and that link of information that we were talking about, if that doesn't happen, then there's no way you can have a happy body, healthy body. And this literally messes up the receptor sites, just gums up the whole process. And it's extremely, extremely hard on the body, okay? The two other things that I want to cover are the harder things to take care of. That's when the mitochondria, where's our spinning mitochondria? She's one of the best mitochondria whenever I've done it. She was just amazing. We had really good actors today. So the mitochondria, when it stops spinning, your production of ATP goes way down and you feel like this all the time. Now, the mitochondria, dysfunction of the mitochondria, and now what we're actually has a whole classification of mitochondrial diseases, is because the mitochondria is not getting the nutrients that it needs. Okay, so a degeneration of the mitochondria is the #6 deadly sin of the cell. And #7 is the most complicated, of which I'm not going to spend much time with, but it's called mutations in the DNA, and those are genetic mutations. So let me do the things that we can do to fix those cells, okay? Magnesium, if we could put on like all the 7 deadly sins and you put magnesium over here, magnesium has an effect on virtually all 7 deadly sins. And I'm going to give you, actually, there's a company called Cell Wellness, has one of the highest quality trace minerals that you can get. It's called trace mineral function, and it has all the things you need, including 72 minerals, but it is extremely, extremely high in magnesium. Cells that won't die as they're supposed to, that's the apoptosis gene. That's because of the communication cycle that the cell is not picking up. That also would go to those same nutrients. In addition, you need a thing called humic acid. Humic acid will help the body flush out the cells that are supposed to die. It helps them stop the mutating of the new cells. So humic acid, and I recommend 1 tablespoon of that 2 times a day. Extracellular fluid, extracellular toxicity. For water to work like it's supposed to, again, you go back to the trace minerals. The other one is intercellular toxicity. Intercellular toxicity is a little trickier because, again, for it to go inside the cell and actually get the intercellular function, remember, because everything else is bouncing off, you're going to have, again, a positive charge, trace minerals, magnesium, okay? And you're going to have the humic acid to flush it out both ways. Okay, so again, these three basic things are going to cover, to some degree, the first 4 of the 7 deadly sins of the cell. #5 has to do with the high glycemic index. Okay, now #1 with that is change your diet. Stop eating so much of anything that's got to do with glucose. But what you need, in addition to that, is you need something that can help reduce the glycemic index in your body. And I'm going to use, again, the trace minerals. I'll use, again, the Nutramastic. Again, high levels of other nutrients that you need that'll break that down. In other words, a highly quality, high proteins, because proteins also help with that. ATP production in the mitochondria. There is 2 products that we have, again, at Cell Wellness that absolutely will make your mitochondria spin. Make it just like this. It spins and spins. It's actually called Cell Power that comes in a spray, and Cell Energy, and it's actually a combination of nutrients that actually helps the body's ATP production naturally. Thank you, and I'll keep coming back and trying to do more.